It's all right. Hey, that's all right, Ray. We'll just get started. There he is. Okay, good. All right. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to go and call this meeting to order for the regular meeting of Destin City Council, October 19th, 2015. If you please rise for the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Mr. Marler.
Thank you, Mayor. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We ask you to make the decisions we make be fair and just for all parties tonight. We ask you to watch over each and every one of us as we leave here tonight. Get us safe to our families. Watch our families. Please watch over all our troops here and abroad. They're what keep this country, this state, and this city safe. We ask this in his name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Marler. Item number one, it's a great honor to have with us from the Emerald Coast Young Marines, Sergeant Ashton Norman, and in a second I'll have you join us up front, but it's reading a proclamation for the Emerald Coast Young Marines during Red Ribbon Week. Sergeant Norman, would you please meet me up front? Sergeant Norman was actually with us last year. If y'all recall, we had the honor of doing this proclamation for them last year, so it's a great privilege for us to do it again. And I read City Proclamation, proclamation to recognize Red Ribbon. How about come out front so everybody can see you? Looking good, all dressed up in your uniform. Proclamation to recognize Red Ribbon Week and the Emerald Coast Young Marines program. Whereas communities across America have been plagued by problems associated with illicit drug use and those that traffic in them, and whereas there is hope in winning the war on drugs through education and drug demand reduction, coupled with the hard work and determination of organizations such as the Young Marines. And whereas governments and community leaders know that citizen support is one of the most effective tools in the effort to reduce the use of illicit drugs in our communities, and whereas the Emerald Coast Young Marines focus on teaching youth to live a drug-free lifestyle and teaching ideals such as leadership, teamwork, and discipline. And whereas the Emerald Coast Young Marines pledge to be drug-free, promote a drug-free lifestyle, and sponsor National Red Ribbon Week activities giving individuals in the Emerald Coast the opportunity to wear a red ribbon signifying their opposition to illegal drug use. And whereas the Red Ribbon Week campaign was established by Congress to encourage drug-free lifestyle, drug prevention, and reduction efforts, which will be celebrated in communities across America the week of October 23rd through the 31st, 2015. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Mel Ponder, on behalf of the Destin City Council, do hereby proclaim October 23rd through 31st, 2015 as Red Ribbon Week in the city of Destin, and recognize the Emerald Coast Young Marines' commitment to living a drug-free life and participation in Red Ribbon Week, so done this 19th day of October 2015. Let me just tell you what they're doing is extremely significant. How many of us know that one of the biggest things, I'm sure, Matt, you could probably tell us more details, but one of the biggest things that's trying to creep its head into our doors is drugs. You find it now a lot with the young people. It's almost commonplace. And to have a group of these young Marines that have said, as for me and my call, we're going to choose to make a difference. We're going to choose to live drug-free, and not just living the lifestyle, we're going to profess that it's the benefits of other youth in our area also being drug-free. And so for us as a city, to have someone like Sergeant Norman amongst us is actually a great honor. And to have a night like tonight that we can honor them for being consecrated means to be set apart. And in society, when it's so much easier to graft in, because they're doing it, so I can do it too, or I could be cool if I do it too. You don't find people like him that says, I'm going to live a lifestyle differently. And so anyway, I celebrate you. I celebrate your character. I celebrate you representing the Young Marines and all of our armed forces. And tonight, the City Council also represents you and honors you for Red Ribbon Week and what you're doing. Would you all please just give honor to him? Honor, Steve. Good stuff. All right, again, do a couple things administratively. Public opportunity to speak on council propositions, which will be the 3 minutes in length, items 6 through 23. I know Mr. Sandstead will be speaking tonight, and if anyone else wants to speak, they can come forward at that time. Otherwise, at the end of the evening, comments from the audience, that's where by resolution you can have up to 5 minutes each. So if any member of the public wishes to speak on something, either on the agenda, off the agenda, that's your time to speak at the end. So I want to make sure everybody knows those as well. Okay, approval of minutes. Item number 2, request approval of minutes of the October 5, 2015 council executive session. City Council?
Motion to approve numbers 2 and 3.
Okay, Mr. Wood has a first on approving 2 and 3. Ms. Trammell has a second. City Council, is there any discussion or direction for that? Okay. Seeing none, we have a first by Mr. Wood, a second by Ms. Trammell. Let's call the vote. Ms. Trammell? Motion passed unanimous, 7-0. Okay, next up, we have 2 items under public hearings. First up, second reading of ordinance 15-13-CN, modifying the City of Destin City Council election date in 2016 to coincide with the 2016 presidential primary election. Mr. Miller, please read by title.
Yes, sir. Ordinance 15-13-CN. By title is an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida relating to Election Day, providing for authority, providing for findings of fact, providing for modifying the 2016 City of Destin City Council Election Day, providing the election day for council members to be held to coincide with the presidential preference primary election in March 2016, providing for the qualifying period for the municipal election in 2016 to be January 4, 2016 through January 8, 2016, providing for termination of existing and commencement of future City Council members' terms, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. The ordinance is before you for consideration on second reading.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Casella, do you have anything else to add to that?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Casella. This is a public hearing, so would any member of the public wish to speak for or against item number 4, which is the second reading of ordinance 15-13-CN, modifying the City of Destin City Council election date in 2016 to coincide with the 2016 presidential primary election? Please come forward and state your name for the record. Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public portion, turn it over to City Council for discussion direction. First up, Ms. Ramswell.
I'll go ahead and make the recommended motion, Mayor. I move that the City Council adopt ordinance 15-13-CN on second reading.
Thank you, Ms. Ramswell. Mr. Wood?
Second.
Mr. Wood has a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's call the vote. Motion passed unanimous, 7-0. Okay, item number 5, second reading of ordinance 15-08-LC, which amends the city's land development code and the code of ordinances to address outdated and inadequate enforcement of unsafe building abatement code regulations. Mr. Miller, will you please read by title?
Yes, sir. Ordinance 15-08-LC by title is an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, relating to unsafe building abatement and abatement of buildings and dwellings which do not meet minimum standards of habitability, providing for authority, providing for findings of fact, providing for purpose, providing for an amendment of the Land Development Code, Article 20, Building Regulations, Section 20.01.00 through 20.06.01, providing for the repeal of Land Development Code Section 20.06.02, Standard Housing Code, 1994 edition adopted, providing for the repeal of Land Development Code Section 20.06.03, Housing Board of Adjustments and Appeals, the same as Board of Adjustment, providing for the repeal of Land Development Code Section 20.06.04, Standard Unsafe Building Abatement Code 1985 edition adopted, providing for the repeal of Land Development Code Section 20.06.05 definitions, providing for the creation of a new Land Development Code Section 20.06.00, Unsafe Building Abatement General, providing for the creation of a new Land Development Code Section 20.06.01 definitions, providing for the creation of a new Land Development Code section, 20.06.02 determination of unsafe building, providing for the creation of a new Land Development Code section 20.06.03 notice, providing for the creation of a new Land Development Code section 20.06.04 additional powers and duties of the building and fire official, providing for the creation of a new Land Development Code section 20.06.05 code enforcement hearing, providing for the creation of a new Land Development Code section 20.06.06 method of demolition or repair, providing for an amendment of the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 6, Buildings and Building Regulations, Section 6.47, administrative amendments to the Florida Building Code, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for incorporation into the Land Development Code and Code of Ordinances, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. The ordinance is before you for consideration on second reading.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Appreciate that. Mr. Casella? Yeah.
That was Scott Shirley's fault.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Casella, anything to add to that, sir?
No, this is consistent with the reading on October 5th, so we'd ask for your authorization for this ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Casella. Any member of the public wish to speak for or against item number 5, second reading of ordinance -15-08-LC, which amends the City Land Development Code and Code of Ordinances to address outdated and inadequate enforcement of unsafe building and abatement code regulations? If you please come forward and state your name for the record. We will not make you read the whole title again. Oh, yeah. Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public portion, turn it over to City Council for direction and discussion. First up, Mr. Wood.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make the recommended motion. I move that the City Council adopt Ordinance 15-08-LC on second reading and direct staff to forward Ordinance 15-08-LC to the Municipal Code Corporation for incorporation into the Land Development Code.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Ms. Trammell?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Trammell. Is there any other discussion?
Could we add to the motion and Code of Ordinances, please? There is a reference to Code of Ordinances also.
I can do that, thank you.
Ms. Trammell, is that good? Yeah. Okay, good. So that's affirmed by the first and the second. Any other council discussion? Okay, seeing none, we have a first by Mr. Wood, a second by Ms. Trammell. Let's call the vote. Motion passed unanimous, 7-0. Okay, next up, we have public opportunity to speak on council propositions. This again will be regarding items 6 through 23. I know we have a comment card by Mr. Sandstead regarding item number 7, which is under the consent agenda. Request approval for use of city streets for the Main Street Betterment Alliance of Destin. Mr. Sandstead, do you care to come forward? And again, under this section, if you can keep your comments to 3 minutes or less, it'd be great, please, sir.
Yes, sir. Good evening. My name is Ron Sandstead, and I'm the president of Main Street Betterment Alliance. And we are having our second 5K Veterans Day run, November 7th. And I am here asking for your permission to use your streets to have our run. We're starting at the American Legion, running north on Main Street, the Indian Trail, and then going east on Indian Trail for about a mile, and then back to Main Street, then back to the Legion. And we're pretty excited about this year, and Mr. Marler has consented to sing their national anthem for us that morning, so I'm pretty pumped. I've heard him sing the national anthem before, so this will be a good time. And I'd like to invite all of you to come out for this event, because we are honoring our veterans, and I think it's an important thing for our city to do this. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sandstead. Appreciate that very much. Anybody have a question, Mr. Sandstead?
I got
Sure,
a quick
please,
one.
Mr. Wood.
Are you having just runners, or do you have walkers also?
Oh, there's walkers too.
Good.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean to just imply that they were just runners. It's runners. It's a run walk.
Okay, and that's more my speed and retired life. That's good. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Mine too.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Any other questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Sandstead. Appreciate that. Anyone else wish to speak on items 6 through 23? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public opportunity to speak at that point in time. Again, recognizing that everyone will get, whoever would like to speak, I shouldn't say everyone, but if you want to speak at the end, you'll have a time to speak at the end. So we'll make sure we're not skipping over you. Okay, next up, consent agenda, Mr. Wood.
Motion to approve items 6 through 9.
Okay, we have a first by Mr. Wood. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Trammell. Is there any discussion? Okay, see none. First by Mr. Wood, a second by Ms. Trammell. Let's call the vote. Motion passed unanimous, 7-0. Okay, next up, committee reports, presentation of Public Works Safety Committee 2015 annual report and 2016 work plan. Ms. Weidenhammer, good to have you with us. You're not in uniform. Well, not for this. Well, maybe it's a different hat. This is your 10th hat you wear. Good. Thanks for coming.
I thought I'd spare you that. Good evening, council members, mayor, Mr. Casella. I am Nancy Weidenhammer, chairperson of the Public Works Public Safety Committee, and I'm here tonight to give our annual report on what we've done in 2015 and what we're hoping to try and accomplish in 2016. On your first page, it gives all our members and the different council people that have appointed us. And I'm going to start out here with our October. We had a public service director, David Campbell, speak to us and inform us and update us on everything. December, we did not have a specific speaker. In January, we had code enforcement, David Basilak, inform us and educate us. February, we had Destin Water Users General Manager Lockwood Wernert. Also, I'd just like to point out in February, we did make a motion to bring to the council that is asking for welcome to Destin sign and a thank you for visiting sign at the entrance and exit of Mid-Bay Bridge. I know there was some discussion that that was going to start in process, and I don't know where that is at this point, but we did pass that. Do you have an update?
Yeah, the Mid-Bay folks are actually working on some renderings of as you come into Destin and it subsequently leaves, so that is in progress, and they're anticipating rolling that out over the next 60 to 90 days.
Great news, thank you. In March, we had the sheriff, Captain Pico, come and give us a presentation. We have a little bit of his information in the packet here. In April, we had Mr. Ken Galander, Community Development Director, come. Also, City Planner Hank Woolard spoke that meeting. May, Vice Chairman Guy Tadlock had to chair the meeting. Did an excellent job, and at that meeting, we had Lance Johnston, the Recreation Director, give us quite an expansive report on what they do. June, we did not have a speaker. July, we had no meeting. In August, the highlight would be that the Methodist Church had asked the Bicycle Committee to come again and do a presentation on bicycle safety to the J1 students who come to into this country and are not familiar with our rules. And we had a lot of things to pass out to them. They seemed very receptive to it and did ask a lot of questions. And also then in July, we had to report it in August. I'm very proud to say that the Bicycle Committee finally got up on its wheels. We've been working at it for probably about a year, but we gave away and fitted 48 bicycle helmets to young children at the July 4th parade. Now these come free from the state, and we do have to get in line and sometimes be ready to push the button the instant it comes available. But we intend to keep doing things like this to promote bicycle safety. In September, we didn't have a presentation by anyone. So now we're into October. At all meetings, I think there's a graph in your packet. We get a graph from a report from the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office stating crimes and traffic crashes and so forth for us, and we can see how it fluctuates and maybe where we can pay attention to it a little more. At all meetings, we hear from each member on their assigned areas. We also receive a monthly project report from the engineering assistant to Joe Bodie. Next, you may see the picture in your packet of the bicycle helmet fitting that was in the Destin log. Andrea Ansley and I were there doing that. It took several hours. But, you know, everyone was very excited about receiving them, and they took it very seriously about getting fitted properly, and especially their parents and guardians. I was quite surprised how well received it was. All right, that's what we did in 2015. Now, for 2016, we do have our sheets that we have filled out, the different areas. We review the 5-year plans for road striping, resurfacing, reconstruction, pedestrian facilities. Scott Jacobs is the chair of that one. Monitor city right-of-ways for safety concerns and report on corrective action. Guy Tadlock and Steve Minchell work on that one. Compile bicyclist and pedestrian input for council and provide safety awareness education. Myself, Sam Perman, and Andrea Ansley do that. Compile citizen input for council and provide information and education on stormwater issues. Myself and Phil Jada. That pretty well takes care of the certain areas that we work on. We do have some goals for the next year. It starts out on page 2. I'm not going to go through all of them. We did have 9 previous years, and we've set up 3 new ones for this year. Number 10, I'm proud to say, we're going to have a booth at the open house in the city.
Good.
The Public Bicycle Committee. So that's a challenge to the rest of the committees. We're going to try and address a little more deeply, car, child, restraint safety seats. This is a big issue, and the more we delve into it, the more we have to learn. So I don't know what the answer is yet, but we're certainly going to really be researching that. And unfortunately, number 12, it has reared its ugly self again. We've been getting a lot of comments that we are seeing too many golf carts on the street instead of LSVs. So we're going to start doing something to try and remedy that. And I guess if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them. But we do appreciate your support, as always.
Thank you, Ms. Weidenhammer. Actually, I know I have one question, and Ms. Tramble does too, but you have several members of your committee here. Would you get them all maybe to stand up so we can honor them real quickly?
Sure.
Sandra,
Committee
Guy,
members,
Steve.
would you stand up?
Ms.
All
Mitchell,
3 of us?
Mr. Tadlock.
That are here?
It's a great presentation, and thank you so much for the work all of y'all do and your team. Job well done on my behalf. Ms. Tramble, you had a question?
Actually, I just had a comment. I'm really proud of you guys, but I had a question for city staff. I know that the staff keeps track of how many hours, volunteer hours that they do. Do we also include our committees above and beyond their meetings monthly? Do we keep it?
That might be a question for Mr.
Yes,
Bailey.
we do keep track of them.
Okay, so are y'all turning them in? Because I know you've been working a lot of hours outside of.
I don't know. I don't personally turn them in.
Okay, we might want to look at that, because I think the city would be it would be an eye-opening experience to see how many hours you all and other committees put into it above and beyond their monthly meetings. And I think you've found, or at least committee members have told me they found, that the more involved they get, the more they feel like they're doing something to improve their city. I love the fact that you have 12 goals here. And I would like to make the motion to accept their annual report and their 2016 work plan.
Thank you, Ms. Tramble. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Foreman, okay. We have first by Mr. Trammell, second by Mr. Foreman. Is there any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, let's call the vote.
Thank you all for your
Whoa,
support.
before you, I got a question, if you don't mind.
Yes,
Sorry.
sir.
Motion passed unanimous, so thanks again to you and your team. Question I had, and maybe, I know Mr. Tadlock and Mr. Minchell do the right-of-way for safety concerns and report of corrective actions. One of the things that Mr. Rayner knows that's important to me is adopt a street. And, you know, one of the goals I have is that every street in the city would be adopted at some point in time, so that we all have ownership over the streets that, from a beautification standpoint and trash and things like that. When they are doing their right-of-way for safety concerns and corrective actions, are y'all able to highlight maybe some streets perhaps that y'all see that say, hey, this and this street really needs to be adopted by someone, or are you able to submit suggestions, or what do you, is there any way that you could maybe add, connecting with Mr. Rayner on that, so that could become part of your work plan?
Yes, sir.
Is that okay with you guys? Okay, cool. That was it.
We can't
Doug,
say
Is
no.
that okay, Mr. Rayner? Okay, good. Thanks. Okay, Mr. Wood?
I was gonna say, I think that comes under environmental too.
Oh, it is? Oh, okay, well then, can we ask,
Just
I'd like to have both.
Both of them. So if, check with the environmental, or whatever that name of that new committee is
That
now.
new committee?
And see if they're picking that up.
All
Okay,
right.
if not, okay, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Wood. Yep,
Yeah.
please.
Thanks, Nancy. A question for you, or
Yes,
maybe
sir.
I had a comment from a citizen here in the last couple of weeks at the end of Shira, where Shira connects to Scenic 98. We had the gravel, parallel parking areas on the right side of the road, and I guess when cars parked there, there was a comment that you can't see vehicles coming from either, at least one direction and maybe both. When I went down there, there was no cars parked there, so I couldn't make the assessment. If you could have one of your guys go and check that out and see when there's actually cars parked in the parking lot and see if there's an issue blocking vision for oncoming cars. If your vehicle doesn't pull up far enough, you can't see what's coming, you pull out, you know what happens. So,
Yes, we would be very glad to check
where
into that.
they're not going 55, but still, you can have
I
access. So,
understand.
okay,
All right.
great, thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate your suggestions always.
Thank you, Ms. Weidenhammer. Is there anyone else? No? Good. Thanks again. Thanks for the team for coming out. Appreciate it very much. Okay, next up, project reports and comments from mayor and council. First up, Mr. Braden.
Saving my time for tomorrow night, Mayor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Braden.
Thank you.
No problem. Wonderful. Ms. Ramswell?
Thank you, Mayor. Along those lines, I would just encourage everybody to come out tomorrow night. We'll be discussing the envisioned findings, and that includes obviously the new version of the comp plan that has been provided. So I encourage the public to come on out, share their thoughts, 5:30 right in here. So hopefully we'll all see you tomorrow.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Ramswell. Next up, Mr. Dixon.
Nothing tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Mr. Foreman?
Yes, Mayor, I have a nomination to the Board of Adjustments. Before I do, I want to mention that the individual that I'm nominating tonight is a retired member of the Air Force. He has 2 children that are in the military service. He's I think he's going to be a great addition to the Board of Adjustments, and so in that vein, I'm going to nominate Mr. Gregory J. Nemick to the Board of Adjustments.
Second.
Great. We have a first by Mr. Foreman, a second by Mr. Dixon. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, let's call the vote. Motion passed unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Foreman, and thank you, Mr. Nemick, for serving. Anything else, Mr. Foreman? Okay, good, thank you. Next up, Mr. Marler.
Just one item. I'm considered an honor to be able to sing at the Veterans Day Run, and I'm looking forward to it, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Marler. Mr. Wood?
I just have a question tonight. Where are we? We were working at one time on getting some street signs on 98, maybe some lighted signs, maybe some numbered signs. Are we where in the process? Yes, at the intersections.
Mr. Kinlander, I know he's, I thought we reported that on several occasions, but do you want to give a current update?
My memory only goes so far, so.
That's fine. I am working, amongst other things, to get further quotes on that, and working with Okaloosa County to see, they have a certain standard of
what they are to maintain. So going above and beyond that with some of these lighted or backlit signage is above and beyond that. So there's going to be a cost associated with all that. And also working within the plans for what is happening on Highway 98 with the widening, et cetera. So we've got some moving things, but I hope to bring back to the Public Works, Public Safety kind of a plan and some financial backing on what that would entail to upgrade those signs. And we could phase those in certain areas like the Harbor District or whatnot and prioritize that.
So do those signs include backlighted signs? Do they also include the numbered signs at intersections?
My plan is to have all those different scenarios laid out for the Public Works, Public Safety to then review and provide further recommendation on.
Okay, good enough. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Wood. Ms. Trammell?
Nothing tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Trammell. The only thing I have is to remind the public, and I'm sure Mr. Rayner is going to bring it up too, that our open house is this Thursday at the community center from 11:30 to 1:30, I believe. And so the food's provided. Please, public, we're going to honor our volunteers among others. Please, if you're able to come by, have something to eat, please do so. The invitation's open to everyone in the city. So that's all I've got. Next up, staff reports and recommendations. First up, Mr. Miller.
I don't have any items, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Shirley?
Nothing here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shirley. Next up, item number 21, first reading of ordinance 15-16-CN, proposed lease of 908 Airport Road. Mr. Miller, please read by title.
Yes, sir. Ordinance 15-16CN by title is an ordinance of the City of Destin of Okaloosa County, Florida, relating to the lease of certain real property owned by the city, providing for authority, providing for finding of fact, providing for City Council approval of a contract for lease of the property to the Food for Thought Outreach located at 908 Airport Road, Destin, Florida, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Caselli, kind of give us a little more background?
Yes, thank you. What this item is, if you recall, you authorized us in the summer to put out requests for proposals for the property at 908 Airport Road. We did that. We did not receive any proposals. We were subsequently approached by the Food for Thought group, which is a agency that feeds in the Okaloosa-Walton area about 1,200 children's on weekends, so they have food to carry them over until they return to school on Monday. What you have before you is the first reading of an ordinance that would basically lease the facility to them for a 3-year period for a monthly rate of $800 per month with the ability to have 2 one-year renewals. To bring the building up to standards, and we have a representative here from the Destin Rotary Club. The Destin Rotary Club is committed to basically refurbish the outside interior of the building up to $6,000. We've got some renderings. We can show you what the building would look like. The color schematic may change as we get into it. But this would be in effect as of March 1st. They would have approximately a 20-day grace period so they can transition in. And then they would, that gives the Rotary Club about 4 months. This requires 2 readings, so that it would be effective on November 2nd. Gives the Rotary Club about 4 months to make the repairs. And so it would take basically a building that has fallen in disrepair and bring it up, to aesthetic standards. Serves their mission very well. Again, they serve about 1,200 students in the Okaloosa-Walton County area, and they serve needs here at the Destin Elementary School as well as the Destin Middle School. So we'd ask for your consideration of this, and I think we do have a younger lady here from the Destin Rotary Club. So.
Yeah, in fact, yeah, Ms. Daly, I was going to have you, under the circumstances, make concession for you to speak just because of the project you're bringing on for Rotary. I'd love to hear your input on what y'all's plans are. It'd be outstanding. So you also filled out the card, so I appreciate that.
Mayor, could I report, please, for the record, the city manager and I are both members of the Destin Rotary Club.
Okay.
Thank
As
you.
well as Preble. Oh, it doesn't matter.
All right, Ms. Ramsdale.
Oh, sorry.
As is Councilperson Ramswell. I'm sorry.
She still is.
Great.
Hey,
Thank-
good
Ms.
evening.
Daly?
Thank you, Mayor Ponder. My name is Jeannie Daly, and I am here tonight on behalf of the Destin Rotary Club. I am the current president of the Destin Rotary Club, and our mission, our motto is service above self. And our mission with our local Destin Rotary Club is to eradicate hunger in the local area. So this, as Mr. Casella pointed out, is a perfect synergy for the Destin Rotary Club to provide service to the community and also to help our mission with helping an organization that we already support in their mission to feed hungry children. So this is a great organization. We have helped Food for Thought out for, I think, 4 or 5 years. So we support Food for Thought as well as the Destin Harvest House. And our board has approved renovating this project. We've already got some volunteers lined up. We've already raised some funds to handle this renovation. I think with 4 months time frame, we've got plenty of time on weekends and evenings to take care of this project. So we're really excited about this project and really thrilled to support the city and Food for Thought. I think it's a huge win for everybody in the whole community. So really appreciate your support, and thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Daly. I agree with that completely. Does anybody have a question or comment for Ms. Daly? Okay. So, thank you so much for being here. Is Ms. Shelton here too? Did Ms. Shelton come? No? Okay, no problem. That's okay. It's all right. We want to thank her too. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, we have already Mr. Miller, Mr. Casella, council discussion direction. First up, Ms. Trammell.
Yes, I'd like to make the recommended motion. I move that council approve ordinance 15-16-CN on first reading and accept the proposed lease of 908 Airport Road to Food for Thought Outreach, Inc., and direct staff to schedule the second reading for November 2nd, 2015.
Thank you, Ms. Trammell. Ms. Ramswell?
I'll second that, as long as that's not a conflict.
It is.
No, I don't perceive anything that will inure to
Just
your
in case,
private.
I'll double second that way.
Private. Well, for the record, because she's going to vote as well, I don't perceive anything that inures to you or Mr. Casella or my private gain or loss regarding the matter.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Appreciate that.
Mayor, I do have a comment before we vote.
Okay, actually, Mr. Wood was next.
Okay.
Okay, good deal. Ms. Trammell, comment?
I just wanted to let the public know, if you're not familiar with this group, they collect food from local businesses and pack backpacks and take them to the school. They have volunteers take them to the schools at the end of the week. So these kids have food on the weekends. They're the ones that get the free lunch, the free breakfast during the week, but then on the weekends they have nothing. So there's a backpack full of stuff for them to have for the weekend. So this is definitely what Jeannie said was a win-win. And we go around, I think they go around on Mondays and pick up the backpacks to pack them again for the next week. So there's some criteria to sign up. The schools are very familiar with the program, and they're thrilled that it's so close by. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Trammell. I agree with that. Amazing organization, and they're helping stomp out hunger. Even in the city of Destin, where we have quite a few kids that go hungry, and they're helping do their part to alleviate that. So definitely a blessing for sure. Any other discussion?
Mayor, I'll comment.
Please. Can you light your mic?
I can't think of a better use of that building, considering what it was destined to be. And this is definitely a plus for the whole city. So I'm for it.
Hear, hear. Outstanding. We have first by Ms. Trammell, second by Ms. Ramswell. Seeing no other discussion, let's call the vote. Motion passed unanimous, 7-0. Ms. Daly, thank you again for your Rotary's contribution to this, and please pass our success on to Ms. Shelton as well. Sorry she couldn't be here. Thanks. I'm sorry? Oh, okay. All right, next up, item number 22. Request approval of waste management franchise agreement. Mr. Casella.
Thank you, Mayor. What you have before you under the city's franchise agreement, exclusive franchise agreement that we have with Waste Management, that is a 5-year contract that expires at at the end of September 2016. Pursuant to that franchise, it requires the city to do one of two things by the end of December in the last 3 months of calendar year 15, is that we, City Council can either make a motion to authorize me to renegotiate an agreement, bring that back to you, or you can basically make a motion to prepare an RFP and go back out into the marketplace. To give you a little bit of a history, especially for the members of the City Council who weren't on this when this agreement was originally entered into, we've had Waste Management provide us services probably for at least 15, maybe 20 years pursuant to agreements. We last went out into the marketplace with an RFP in 2006, and Waste Management competed and was re-awarded, the contract. We renewed in 2011, and there was a little bit of a challenge. We originally were going to do a non-ad valorem special assessment to collect the sanitation and garbage services, and then subsequently went back to a more traditional, quarterly billing, with the city acting as the backstop to help them for anybody for non-payment. We get very favorable responses relating to the service from Waste Management. Not that they're perfect, but they do a really good job of providing the twice-a-week cart service, once-a-week recycling and yard waste on the residential service level, and then as well as they do provide a special material pickup up to 6 cubic yards upon demand. So what you have before you, and we have representatives from Waste Management here if they want to answer any question, you have before you the policy issue. Do you want to renegotiate, or you subsequently want to go out for an RFP for these services? I can tell you in my career, anytime you change service providers, you have new drivers who have to learn the routes. It takes 3 to 6 months. Overall, service has been well received by Waste Management. But again, the last time we were in the marketplace was in 2006. So it's a policy issue. Again, we've given you both recommended motion, and there is representatives from Waste Management here that can answer any questions, and they are more than willing to renegotiate if that's the direction you want to provide. We do collect from a revenue about 1% of the gross of their revenue streams, which generates about $30,000 to $36,000 a year. This is residential and commercial, so they have an exclusive for all of the Destin service areas. So we would ask for your policy direction on this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Casella. I appreciate that. We have several council members that have some discussion or direction, perhaps. First up, Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mayor. It's my opinion that I think that we owe it to our citizens of this community to put this thing back out to bid to ensure that they're getting the best service for the best price. And with that said, I'd like to make a motion, Mayor. Sure. I recommend that the city manager notify Waste Management of the city's intent not to renew the contract.
Okay, first by Mr. Braden, a second by Mr. Dixon, to essentially not renew, which would be therefore mean to go to RFP. Okay. Discussion, Ms. Tram?
Okay, I guess I have a question. I know with this contract we're currently in right now, we've had issues with collections. And how are we addressing that if we go out for an RFP, no matter who bids on it?
Well, in the spring, we had about $125,000, if I remember correctly, in receivables. That number has been reduced down to about $25,000. So over the summer, we've reduced that number significantly. And I think we now have a system in place that gives us a much more timely renewal, so the notification and so forth. And if the carts are pulled, then we subsequently will schedule in front of the special magistrate, and the special magistrate's done a really good job of moving these through. The timing of this, if this is the direction you want to go in, what it does is we would prepare the RFP, we would share the RFP with you prior to us releasing it, so you would make sure how we understood the level of service we're going to get. Clearly, from a staff standpoint, I think even from waste management standpoint to a certain degree, that this collection methodology is not working real well. It is just very time-consuming, clunky. Do you agree with that, Mr. Sherman?
I agree 100%.
Yeah, so we would change that and make it more that if it was, if they didn't pay and they had their services terminated when the cart was subsequently pulled, they would notify us. Then we would then take the property owner under an NOV, notice of violation, and subsequently to the special magistrate for enforcement if we couldn't get enforcement. So we'd still be involved, but not in the collection business.
Okay, thank you. My next question is, putting this out to an RFP, we have, as part of our charter, that we have to take the lowest bid. How are we going to look at the services provided versus the bid rate?
Well, this would be an RFP, a request for proposals. I can tell you the last time it was partially based on, because you're going to have a composition of costs allocated between the residential customer and the commercial customer. And it's not going to be an easy thing to just to calculate a low bid. So this is not necessarily just going to be low bid. You're going to have the ability to weigh in other service factors and so forth, and we can insert that into the RFP process.
Okay, I just don't want to have somebody look at me and say, well, our charter says we have to accept the lowest bid, and we didn't like it to begin with. So, okay, all right, thank you.
We'll want to make sure, again, Waste Management has done a good job. We want to make sure that whoever is picking it up is a good provider and has good references and so forth. Again, they competed in 2006. They were the current provider. They continued. It was renewed in 2011. So I would imagine that if this is a decision, they would still want to compete for this work.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trammell. Mr. Marler?
Thank you, Mayor. Since you brought up 2006, that's perfect, because as I recall, as I was on council, we only had, besides Waste Management, we only had two other entities. One was BFI, which I guess they've changed their name since then, and a small service that was out of Defuniak, and the small service couldn't adequately do what we wanted, and I think it was just competitive between BFI, but we only have two other choices unless somebody else has created a scene besides, created the one besides Waste Management, and I won't be able to support the motion.
Yeah, I think, if I remember, I think we had two large Waste Management and two smaller companies. I think we had a total of 4 in 06, if I remember.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Marler. Next up, Mr. Wood.
I guess I'm just curious, going back to the question that Sandy asked. I know we're paying, what, $1 and something on our bills for Waste Management to collect the bills for us because we didn't want to do it. So if we renegotiate, I would expect the price to at least be that much less, because that ought to be taken out of there. So we're not going to be collecting bills anymore. I hope not.
If I understood, this motion is to put it out for an RFP.
Okay.
And then we would make sure the proposal met with whoever the provider was, that they do the billing and we not pay for that.
And the level of service will be the same thing we have now.
Unless y'all want to change it. But that's what we would propose at this point. This bid would probably go out in April. You'd want to be able to award it in July so that they would give them at least 3 months to get, if you went to a new provider.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Ms. Ramswell?
Thank you. I actually have two questions. One of them is, I guess, a procedural question that I was unaware of until Councilwoman Trammell brought it up. Our charter stipulates that we have to accept the lowest bid?
Lowest and best.
Lowest and best. Okay, so
can I interject with the standard? In awards, you are to award to the lowest responsible bidder. It's a 3-point test.
Lowest responsive
Yes.
bid. Okay. Huh. All right.
That's a general law proposition.
So it wouldn't be based just on cost.
Good, that's a good thing. Yeah, I can see that turning badly quickly. I had another question too. Are there new protocols or procedures that are in place? I know there's been some discussion about the billing and the issues that occurred this spring. How would those be incorporated? Would that be part of the RFP? Would that be part of an agreement? How does?
That would be part of the RFP, what we're going to expect the providers to provide. And we would shift away from the collection processes that we currently have in this franchise to a more traditional, as I was explaining earlier. Instead of us being the backstop, taking when they don't get paid and taking them to special magistrate, what we would do is we would want them to do their normal collection procedures. If they didn't collect and then they subsequently pulled the card, then we would then be notified that that particular unit no longer had solid waste service, and then we would take the property owner to the special magistrate, issue an NOV, and if we didn't get compliant, then take them to the special magistrate.
Okay, and then then you said that it went from 125 down to 25 is what's outstanding now? I thought it was less than that.
Well, it's approximately around $25,000, and it ebbs and flows depending on how close you get to the billing cycles.
Can I ask, what is the typical, how much is a billing cycle? What is that price? I'm not sure of the correct terminology, but as the city, all the residents, what are we looking at?
It's about $64 a quarter, about $22.
No. I meant all the residents, all the folks in Destin. How much are we talking about each billing cycle being incurred?
Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're probably in that $750,000 to $800,000 range. Is that correct? At a 1% is $360,000. That'd be about $3.6 million. So it'd be about $900,000 a
Each
quarter.
90 days?
A quarter.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
And that's commercial. That's commercial and residential.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Ramsell. Next up, Mr. Foreman.
My understanding of the process, just to clear the air on this, is we do the RFP, we make sure that we're satisfied with the RFP. We send the RFP out, the folks send in their bids on that, based on that RFP. It's given to the bid committee, and the bid committee scores it based upon all of the factors that we've been discussing. They will then make a recommendation to the city council on which company gets the bid.
And that's correct. And that would be, the RFP would get released in the April-May timeframe. Responses would come in the June. Bid committee would do its work, make a recommendation, and you would award in June and July for them to, whoever the provider is. If you change providers, they would start October 1st. If you stayed, they would just continue under the new franchise on October 1st.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Next up, Mr. Wood.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I'm curious. I mean, if the will of the council is to send this back out for a bid, I'm okay with that. I'm just curious as to what we think we're going to save. We're paying about $21 and change a month for trash. Nobody in my family living any place pays that low of a price for trash getting picked up one time a week. I mean, are we going to throw this out? And if we decide to make a change over saving $1, is that what we're going to do here? I'm kind of confused what we're trying to do.
Mayor, may I respond?
Yeah, let him.
The motion in the second is to forbid the renewal and go to RFP. And so if you're trying to enter a substitute motion, you can, or I'll listen to Mr. Braden's response.
I'm not offering it well.
Okay, well, Mr. Braden, if you want to respond, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm not like Mr. Woods. I'm not trying to save 50 cents or $1 on it. I don't think that's the issue. way the motion that I made, I just want to make sure that, you know, this community gets put out for bid like everybody else and, you know, gets bid on and make sure they're getting a fair shot at it is all. That, I mean, I'm just looking at it from the outside in, that, you know, there's nothing going on. We're not just keep renegotiating this bid, you know, contract year after year after year, every 5 years. Just put it back out for fairness. Just put it back out and let it bid. If they win it again, that's great. But at least the community knows that, you know, we're trying to get them the best service for the best price. Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Braden. Okay, Mr. Wood, are you done? Yep. Okay, Mr. Dixon?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Mr. Braden, although I have no concerns about how Waste Management has performed the job. I feel like we owe it to the citizens to, any time there's a contract like this that comes up, we need to look and make sure that we're getting the best bang for the buck. Not saying we're not. They have, Waste Management will be able to qualify for this thing and send in a proposal, and I just feel like it's only fair that we, from time to time, do this and bid it out. So that's why I'm going to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Any other discussion? Does anybody, before we vote, have a question on of Waste Management while they're here? Any direct question to them? Ms. Ramswell, do you want to direct it to Mr. Bell? Mr. Bell, do you mind coming
Certainly, that'd
forward?
be great if you don't mind.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd just like to hear if, based on what you've seen in reviewing our account and service, if there's any changes you would recommend, if you think things are great the way they are, just if you could offer some insight into what you see with our account.
I'm Ronnie Bell, Waste Management. I've had the opportunity to meet a few of you tonight before the meeting started, and I've only been with the company 4 months. One of the things that I know that I had an opportunity to meet with Mr. Casella about was the billing. We've come up with some suggestions, some ideas on that, and sounds like that he's receptive to looking at some of those that will help us move that process along a lot better and not deal as much with the special magistrate. I think there's some things that we could do. I understand the councilman's concern about bidding it out. Even though I've only been with the company 4 months, I'm dealing all the way from Tallahassee to Escambia, and occasionally we have this issue where councilor or county commission think that the contract has been renewed enough that he at least put it back out on the street. And of course, that's the wishes of the council, and I understand that completely. One of the things I would ask for you to consider, if you wish to do this, is would you consider during the time that the RFP is being produced to go on the street, for us to have the opportunity to sit with Mr. Casella and possibly look at an alternative? And I understand, Councilman, I mean, I'm just saying, I'm asking a question.
Yeah, we're not going to entertain from the floor that. We'll have a vote, and then if, depending on how that vote turns out, then we can entertain a substitute. Because the council's got to make the substitute motions, not the floor. So
I'm sorry.
Sorry, Mr. Bell.
You know,
that's okay.
Not quite understanding exactly each council and how they operate, and I apologize for that.
Yeah, we're not in this position to negotiate at this point in time. We just want to make sure we get the questions answered of council before we vote.
Okay.
And then it depends on how that goes, then by all means, you can always get Mr. Casella and see what we need to do next.
Okay. Thank you,
Mr. Ramsell, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Any other question of Mr. Bell? Okay. No. Okay. Next up, Mr. Dixon? That's it. Okay. Then next up, Ms. Trammell.
I just, some of y'all weren't here when we did this years ago, again, and part of the reason we sent it out to bid was because we were having a disconnect in communication, and people were living in houses and not using the trash service. They weren't paying for it. They were doing a lot of things, and that Waste Management at the time cut them off. That was great. But then the communication was we didn't get the information. So we had people out there, and they were saying, hey, you know, we've got so many outstanding bills that nobody knows about. So they actually helped us formulate the last plan we had, which the citizens objected to, but still it was a plan that we formulated to get that back on track. So I'm hoping now we have, no matter who it is, we have a better system, and especially if we go with a new company, that we get them up to speed like day one, so that we don't have this again, because all of us have been inundated with concerns from citizens about the aesthetics and the environment of our community. And I don't want to do anything that's going to be a detriment to that. So somehow we got to get that back up to speed. But that was just a comment before the vote.
Great, thank you, Ms. Trammell. Any other discussion? Okay, and we have a first by Mr. Braden, a second by Mr. Dixon to basically forego the renewal and go to an RFP process. See no other discussion, let's call the vote. Mr. Marler? Motion passes 6-1. I do want to thank Waste Management for being here. I know my personal experience has been nothing short of spectacular with y'all. I think Miss Yord, I told her on a couple occasions, my driver that picks up always goes the extra mile. Amazingly gifted acts of service that he does. I mean, so I've got nothing but praises to say. I do respect what the council's doing. I think that trues up the city to make sure, as Mr. Dixon put it, that, and Mr. Braden, it just kind of keeps us square and make sure that we're getting the best thing. But I do want to thank you again for what you've done. I mean, I know from my standpoint, it's been spectacular. So appreciate it very much. So, okay, next up, item number 23, city manager comments. Mr. Casella.
Just two reminders, and we've mentioned them already. We've got the Envision Destin tomorrow at 5:30 in this room, and then we have the open house Thursday at 11:30. So we invite everybody out to both of those sessions.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Casella. Next up, comments from the audience. Any member of the public wish to speak on any item, the floor is open. And again, if I can remind everyone just to keep the comments to 5 minutes or less, would be outstanding. Ms. Weidenhammer?
I forgot a very important message to the community. We're giving away a bicycle, so you need to show up.
Oh my God, hey, man. What, is it big enough for the old timers or is it just for kids? Do I get a helmet? I give away a bicycle. All right, good, thanks. Thanks, Weidenhammer. Mr. Moody?
Hey, Mayor, Council, Shane Moody, President and CEO of the Destin Area Chamber of Commerce. I too am a member of the Destin Rotary Club, so thank you for that. We're very involved with Food for Thought, and I think what Tiffany does is outstanding, so thank you for that. The reason I'm up here is I will not be here tomorrow night for your Envision Destin meeting. Daddy duty calls. So I've got a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old I have to go take care of. But I did want to, since I won't be here, my chairman can't be here. I think Jeannie's got him in homeowners association meetings all day and all night tomorrow night. I'm trying to get some other board members here.
Is Ken pulling that excuse again?
Yeah, he always pulls. He pulls that excuse with me every time I need him at night.
Yeah.
But I did want to reiterate our message to you last Monday's meeting, that in general, we support the Canaan report. We think it's a good report. We think it's a fair report. We think it sets very good standards, that the developers understand where they can go. We also think that it protects their property rights. We like the transportation components. So as I said last week, we ask for you to consider the things that are in there as you go and finish up the comp plan, because we think that it does enhance what we have in Destin. Again, the pedestrian safety is important for the tourists. The transportation components are good for the tourists, but then you have the economic development component and the kinds of industries that we're looking to recruit and want to come and locate here with high-skilled, high-wage jobs. That's the kind of the communities that Canaan has designed. That's what those companies are looking for their employees. The walkable office, restaurant, shopping, everything right there together. We know that your decision tomorrow night, we don't envy you having to make that decision, so we thank you for what you're going through and making the decision. We know that you're not going to make everyone happy with it. Whatever you decide, we also know that not everybody's going to be angry at you either, so keep that in mind, and we ask you to take that into consideration. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Moody. Appreciate that. Next. Seeing none other, tonight's meeting is adjourned. Again, reminder tomorrow evening, Envision Destin begins at 5:30 right here in the council chambers.